Welcome to this topic video on more interactivity with React. So, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a more complicated user interface. Okay? In this example, we're going to go back to the QUIZ-O-MATIC and we're going to see what I consider a dynamic form. And by form, I don't mean HTML form, I mean a user interface that has a bunch of input fields, buttons, selections, menus, whatever, okay? And this one's going to actually have more or less stuff on it depending on what the user wants to do, okay? So it's going to also give us a good chance to see all those array methods in use to properly change an array state variable, okay? We're going to see another issue come up that can be solved in two different ways, either an arrow function, but we're going to actually show doing a closure because once again, that's more general in case you forget about some of the weird rules about this and arrow functions. And we're going to see yet another use of, or design pattern of React data flows with data flowing down through properties and then up through functions. Okay. These are React specific, okay? So React in events, React in what are known as forms or controlled components, which is the model we're going to be using, okay? And some more stuff on React events because they do a few extra things on top of the regular event object. They enhance it a bit, okay? So we've been making the QUIZ-O-MATIC. We've got an introduction component. We've got a component that shows all the questions that'll become a quiz, and then we've got a summary component. Let's make a let's make a component that allows a user or an administrator, whoever, to add a question to the question pool. Okay? So we're going to let them add and edit questions to QUIZ-O-MATIC. Okay? We're going to need to take in text for the question, text for each of the choices, and have an indicator for the correct choice. Okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is an initial mockup. Okay? That means I'm going to put this together without worrying about getting all the functionality to update all these things. Okay? And I'm going to do this in React. Okay? So we've got lots of pieces. We've got this text area for the question. Okay, this can get long. So we give them a whole text area, multi-line. Okay, we got an input for each of the choices. Okay, so each choice gets an input. We've got buttons for deleting a particular choice. Okay, here, here, here. Okay, and adding a choice and adding a question. Okay. And we have a select for choosing the answer. So this is what I want to do. Okay, so this is on the branch, example branch, class component 4. Okay, this is where I'm at. Notice, if you do this, you can try and type, but nothing works. Nothing changes. Okay. I didn't take this example that far. Add choice doesn't work. Add question doesn't work. Answer, you can't change it. It's stuck. Now, what I did to do this is a pattern that I've found kind of useful, okay, in coming up with these things, okay. I come up with an add question component. Okay, it's going to be a stateful component because I'm going to be using the design pattern of a controlled component means every component I keep track of the state for. To start this off though, at the beginning of my component, I haven't given it any interactivity yet, I specify as the state the pieces that I want to get from the user. Okay, so here's the question. Here's some example choices, and here's an answer field, okay? These are the things that I want the user to update. Now, that doesn't mean in a complicated component we may have extra state we keep for running the component, but this is at least the stuff I want to get from the user. Okay. The next thing I do, okay, based on that state stuff, what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate what the interface should look like. Okay. So what am I doing here? Look at this, choice items. Okay. Remember, I added choices to my state. Okay. Choices right here in my state. Okay. So let's see what I'm doing here. Choice items, map the choices. Okay. So I'm going to take all that list of strings of choices. Okay. Each one is going to become a list item. Each list item gets a button for deleting. Okay. This button doesn't have any handlers, so it can't do anything. Okay. It's got a delete button. I'm not sure why I had that span there. It might have been for space. I've got an input value equals choice. Okay, the current value. There's nothing to handle changes, okay, to that input yet. We haven't gotten that far. Okay, but I'm going to create the list of delete. I'm going to have a list that includes a delete button and an input for each of the choices. Okay. Then I'm doing something sophisticated here. I'm creating options. Options for what? Options so the person writing the question can choose which of the choices is the correct answer. Oh, gotcha. Okay, so I did something tricky. I came up with a bunch of letters because I want to show them the different letters as the values, etc. etc. Return option, I need key, here's values, letters, blah, 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 to show that thing off. Okay. No, so another that pattern gets used multiple times. Okay. Question, text area, this state question. Okay. So I'm taking the state, okay, before I can even change it though, and use it to help me render what the component looks like. Okay. So let's take a look. Boom. Warning. Failed prop type. You provided a value prop to a form field without an onChange handler. Yes, I did. Why did I do that? I was just prototyping this up. So React is checking this and saying, hey, I think you need to do something if you want this to work. Okay, and I know that. It's not finished yet. But this is how I get started, okay? And so you could see, okay, in my addQuestions, okay, in my addQuestion component, I've got the question component. If I wanted to, I don't know if it'll let me. I've never tried modifying I've never modified something, a number of elements, but when I can actually modify this by modifying this in the controls here. Not like I really want to do that right now, but this is legit. Okay, I'm able to see these things. I've got the prototype. Now what I want to start doing is making it come alive. Okay, so before I do a ton of work to bring it alive, I might check with the user interface expert if this is good enough. I'm not saying the styling is great or anything, but this is kind of how I work. Okay, and this stuff will get complicated and such, but first thing, easy one. Let's update and make the text area update. Okay, so we're going to add an event handler for changes in the text area. Okay, so what are we going to do? Text area change event, that state, but first let's go and check this out. Okay, I'll stop the build, get checkout, class comp 545, oops, get check out class, don't type too fast, you make mistakes, or at least I do. We'll start that build going, but let's take a look at what's happening now. We're going to go take a look in the addQuestion component. Okay, we've got a method. Okay, so we're in the class, addQuestion, blah, blah. Okay, it's React component, we're using class component. I have a method, text area change event. So I get a change event, and what's question? Question is just a string, okay? So when that event comes through, a change event of the text area, okay, all I do is set the question, part of the state, to the new value. Okay, that one's pretty easy. Let's see where we used it. So in render, where's my choices, blah, 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 blah. It takes a little while to find. Here's the text area. Let's put X highlighting. Here's the text area. Value, we're setting the value on change. Oh, this text area change bind this. Okay, our typical pattern. Okay, so that's going to get called. Let's check and see if this is working now. Oh, I think oh, when is it okay to put passwords in the clear on a server? The answer is, oh, well, we need to add some choices. Okay. Now, let's go take a look on how to do that. Okay, so we got the Chandler text area change working. Okay. Now, updating choices, but we haven't added a choice yet. Modifying a state array. Adding a choice. Okay. We've got this add choice button. Let's make it work. How should it work? Okay. Button, this add choice bind this. Okay. There's my button for adding a choice. Option select. Button on click. Add choice. Okay. This add choice bind this. Okay, so let's look at that helper function. Add, what's this doing? So here's add choice. This set state choices. We need to add another thing to the state. Can we do state.choices push? No. Remember, we always have to create a new thing to set the state to. The state, in this case, choices, is an array. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to use the concat array method because it creates, in addition, okay, it creates a new array that contains the old array plus the stuff you want to add to it. Okay, and it doesn't modify the old array if for some reason you want to use that. Okay, so it produces a new array. How simple. Wow, this doesn't look very complicated, Professor. All you're doing is taking the current thing and adding an empty choice string to it. So let's try the button, see what it does. Add choice. Oh, look, it added this empty choice there. Do it again. Oh, and my rendering thing knew how to render this, remember? Because I already did that with the mockup. So all I had to do was to get the add choice functionality was properly update the array when they click that button. Okay. Good. Got it. Okay. So that's where we are. Before we delete a choice though, let's see about updating a choice. Okay, here's the issue. As you saw, folks can add and have a variable number of choices. Okay, we don't want to give them a fixed number. We don't want to give them a bunch and say, well, for the one that you're not using, just don't put in the input or something silly like that. No, we want them to just let them indicate the number of choices. And if they don't want one anymore, they can delete it. They can edit it. A nice interface, not something clunky. Okay? This sounds complicated though. We've got a variable number of possible choices. So we need to upstate the state within an array. Okay? How are we going to do that? Oh, let's take a look. Here's the choice change method. Choice change. If you tell me what choice they selected and you give me the new event coming from the input, what am I going to do? Oh, we're going to use the map function. What's the map function do? It produces a new array based on applying a function to the old array. And what are the arguments? Well, the current item you're iterating through. Oh, but it also will give you the index. Wait, if I check if the index in the array is the same as the thing that the callback, that called this callback, if this I, how we're going to set that, we'll figure that one out. But if they're the same, then in that case, I want to take the event information, the value from the event's target, okay, and return that as the new choice to update this array item. Otherwise, I'm going to use the existing choice that's currently in this choices array. Okay? Wow, Professor, that seems kind of tricky. Yeah, but not really. Produces a new array. Remember, don't prematurely optimize this stuff. Okay? This is a list, a small list of items. Okay? Don't sit there going, well, that's not efficient. Don't worry about that. Okay? We're going to just grab the one that matters, okay, and update it, okay. Then we have this new array, and then we'll use set state choices to the new choice array, okay. Well, that seems straightforward, Professor. Let's use it. Let's use it. Okay, so where are we using it? Oh, when we make this list of stuff. This is the input. So we need a handler on the inputs as well as a handler for the delete button. Okay. So choice items, input. Okay, we're not even looking at the delete one right now. Okay, in reality, there is a delete. Okay, so where is it? The choices, where's the choices, the choices, the choices? We've got the delete button here, and we've got the input here, okay? We're worried about on change, okay? So let's see my first attempt at this. Okay, I say this choice change I. Oh, because remember we wanted I. Then I want to bind this, okay? Let me just say, this isn't going to work for multiple reasons. Okay, this is undefined. Professor, how could this be undefined? You have it and you used it right here, and why is it saying it's undefined here? Good question. Let's look at this carefully and closely. So I'm going to new image, make it bigger. Okay, so up here we see this. Okay, we're iterating through the choices with the map function, right? And then, oh, we declare a function here. We create a new function. This gives us a new function context. So within this function that we just created, okay, it doesn't have a name, it's an anonymous function. This is not the same as the above this. Right? Because it has a special meaning. So this is completely won't work. It's not the same. Okay? We're in a different, once we create a new function, we're in a new, call that function, we're in a new context. Okay? We would need to do maybe a bind or something. Okay? But bind is a little odd in this context. So let's see a possible solution. Or let's see first solution. Okay? So, our problem was that within this function here, this gets given a new meaning. Okay? So, let's not use the word this. Oh, Professor, really? I'm going to temporarily store this variable from the outer context into something called that. Yes, this is a pattern that is really used in JavaScript. Okay? Now, when I come inside this function, that is still defined and exists. Okay? So I can use it. Okay? No confusion with the variable this in this new context. Okay? So this, using that, allows me to specify what? The function to be called on choice change. Remember way back here. Okay? We had this choice change thing. Okay? And so we wanted to make sure we called it. This is an event handler. Choice change is an event handler within our addQuestion component. Okay? Let's see that specifically. Let's go look at the code. Here's our constructor functions, text area change, choice change. Okay? So this is within our class. Okay? So that's the function. Now we want to correctly use it. Okay? So what will we do? We're using that technique, closure base fixed, now. Okay? On change, that dot choice change bind. Okay? So we had to use that here, but now we still have to bind it because choice change is going to reference state and things like that, right? Of course, yes. But look at this. I'm giving bind another variable. What's that for? Oh, that's so I can pass in a parameter here. Okay? What I didn't want to do, which I did up here, the other mistake up here is I put I here, like I was calling the function with the value I. I don't want to call it with the value of I because there's no event information yet, right? This thing is supposed to get called when an onChange event happens, not when I set the parameter. I want to bind the parameter, that first parameter in. I don't want to call the function yet. Ah, that's right. Way back when, there's the difference between call, apply, and bind. Bind was the one that did not call the function yet. Okay? So that's what we're doing over here. Okay? This is how I set up a lot of things so I don't have to make a lot of little functions. Okay? Or in this case, I wouldn't know how many functions to make at all because the number of choices is variable. So I really do want to pass a variable in. Okay? So let's see this work. Okay? So we're using map, okay, in multiple places, okay? But in particular, we're using map choice change. We're using map in this one way to only update the correct choice when I type in to one of these fields. Will it work? Let's try it. Is it OK passwords in the clear on the server? Yeah, sure. Never. Oh, look at that. It's changing just the one I'm typing in. Okay, not the other. Never, ever, ever, ever. Oh, let's see if it works if I type into this one. If you pay me enough. Oh, that's not a good thing. just say. Can I go back and change this one? Look at what's happening here. Yeah. So this trick is working. It's not a trick. It's an efficient way to do this. Okay. I've got a bunch of controls. Okay. I have one handler for them. I bind which one. I bind the ID of these, or the index of each one of these, into the event handler, so when it gets called, it can update the proper thing. The proper state with all the proper ways to do it. Nifty. Okay, Professor. What about deleting choices? Not a real choice. You should never use all caps because it's obnoxious. Okay, so it's not a real choice. How are we going to delete a choice? How am I going to just, oh, it works. How am I going to delete a choice? Okay, let's go see. So we saw how we added a choice. We used concat. Okay, we use concat. How can we delete a choice? Okay, so we're going to use the same thing like we did before. We need to indicate which choice to be deleted. So we're going to have a function, del choice. We're going to do it. It goes right with the input. We're using the same thing. It's right next to the input. So we're just using the same technique of that equals this and all the other stuff. We're binding the information. How are we going to make this function? We're updating an array of choices. We're going to remove a choice. How can we come up with a new array where the items, oh, that's what filter's for. That's what the array method filter does. It produces a new array, okay, based on a function that you give it that returns either true or false. If it returns false, that item is not included in the new array. If it returns true, it is. Oh, so if I want to delete something in particular out of an array, one way to do it and produce a new updated array is use filter in a very simplistic manner. Look at this. Function choice index. If index equals I, that's the one we want to delete, we return false, so it's not included in the array anymore. Else we return true, so that would be. Then, with this new updated choices array of choices, we set state. Really, Professor? Yeah, really. We're using array methods that produce new arrays. Okay? Nice. What else do we need to do? Function callup. Why would we need to do that? Oh, we want the QUIZ-O-MATIC addQuestion component to be able to add a question to the app, right? It's up at the app level. The QUIZ-O-MATIC app level, that's where the questions are kept. So how are we going to do that? Now, we learned about this a little bit last time. Oh, pass a method down to update questions. Okay, so in the QUIZ-O-MATIC, okay, we've got the question state. Oh, here's the add questions. This set state questions. Concat. It's that same pattern. We've used it already. Okay, so that's what this is going to do. Now, what are we going to do with that? We're going to pass that method down to who? Oh, addQ. So if we're in state where we're going to show the addQ component, the addQuestion component, we're going to pass into that component via property that method. Okay, we've got to bind this to it and all that. Okay, we're going to pass down a method. Okay, let's see. And let's go back and one quick look at the method. Oh, notice it updates the question array and it's going to set state show quiz. Okay, we're going to see if that new question shows up. Okay, That's going to be interesting. Okay, let's watch this happen. But let's first see how this is working. Okay. addQuestion. Where am I? Wait, I'm in addQuestion. Oh, the addQuestion component. What am I doing? I have a function named addQuestion? A little confusing, Professor. All right, but I can use that because what's getting passed down to me is in the props. I'm using my version of addQuestion to collect the pieces of the question. Q equals question. I'm creating a new object here. Question to state question, choices to state choices, answer to state answer. So I'm creating a new object. Then I'm calling this dot props add question. Ah, I see. Who uses this? Okay. So I'm using the passed in question, but I'm doing a little passed in function, the props that came down from the outside. Okay. I'm using it, but I'm doing a little bit of my own processing first, put things in the format that the parent component wants it. Okay. So here I see my add question. Okay. He's calling not the props, but his own add question, which is here, which then does some work to assemble the object and then passes that object, that new question object, to addQ. Let's see. Okay, using the passed-in method. Okay, we just looked at that. Okay. We're using that here. Let's see if this works. Okay. If you pay me enough. Terrible, terrible. Add question. Where's the question? Oh, it gets added at the back. When is it okay to put passwords in the clear on the server? Never, ever, ever. Okay. Oops, I forgot to set the answer. Okay. So we saw here, okay, that we can build, okay, a relatively complicated user interface, okay, where they can add as many different choices as they want. They can delete the choices, they put in stuff, okay. A nice modern form input, okay. To do this all nicely, with React, okay, we found that we leveraged a lot of JavaScript methods, okay. So, we created the dynamic forms. We used lots of array methods. So we leveraged the power of React with the power of JavaScript as a language and its libraries, particularly the array libraries. We had to do a little putzing around with closures and stuff like that. And then we got to see the React data flow using properties to pass things down, and including passing down a function that could be called up to send data back to a parent component in a nice controlled way. Okay, so go out there and make some good, easy to use interfaces. And remember that some of those can be a little tricky to implement. All right, talk to you later.